of the Committee of the Whole to order at 5:33 p.m. Can you please call the roll?
Ms. Pearson, Mr. Rollins.
Here.
Ms. Mohammed, Mrs. McCulloch.
Here.
Mr. Siegel.
Here.
Mr. Connor.
Here.
Ms. Stanford.
Here.
With 5 present, 2 absent, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll take a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go any further, thank you, Connor. Connor Childers is working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast on Channel 20. And I also wish to welcome, I don't see our student advisory student is not here, so if Ben comes, Ben is from East High School, and he'll join us if he arrives. I just want to remind everyone that we'd like you to hold your questions until after each of the presentations, and the first thing on the agenda are the meeting minutes from last month, April 5th, 2022. Are there any changes, corrections, or additions to those minutes? I see heads. No, no, no. So is there a consensus to approve those? I need other nod. Yeah, okay, got that. Thank you. Mr. Siegel, I'm going to give you the floor. You can leave the internal, external stakeholders committee portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. McCulloch. I appreciate that. Before I get going on the committee report, I do want to recognize that this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we obviously have a number of former educators in this room as well as some present educators. So I want to thank all educators in our district and across our great community. Thank you very much. I appreciate the hard work that you put in. We will begin our committee tonight hearing from RPS 205 Family and Community Engagement Manager Maureen Kirschman, who will give us an update on parent liaisons.
Hi, once again, I'm Maureen Kirschman, Family and Community Engagement Manager. The Family and Community Engagement Department has been working with parent liaisons since the 2019-2020 school year, and it was during the school year there was 23 parent liaisons from kindergarten through 12th grade, and our objective was to learn more about this work and how we could support the growth of this position. This was also the year that the initial position framework was created for both the elementary parent liaisons and the secondary parent liaisons. We provided professional learning communities, or PLCs, for both the elementary and secondary teams, and offered an opportunity for schools to send a liaison to attend the annual Every Student Succeeds Act conference in Chicago. And this was the first professional development that the FACE department offered for this position. Professional development was an area where we had identified very quickly that there was a need and an opportunity for some growth. The FACE department continued to provide virtual support at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, which, as we all know, is how we ended our 2020 school year. For 2020 to 2021, this was the first year that the FACE department took a more direct coaching role with the parent liaison team. The team was increased to 31 liaisons, 10 elementary and 21 secondary. We continued to meet virtually on a weekly basis, either for their team PLC, which we divided by their level, either elementary, middle school, or high school, or as a whole group so we could have an opportunity for the levels to learn from each other. We also met with the team weekly at their schools virtually to see what we could do to help support them with the emerging needs that were happening during COVID. While the year presented unique challenges, support continued to be provided, and we worked to refine the position framework to include best practices for identifying students for their caseloads and creatively helped schools to host family engagement events through Zoom, which were pretty well attended. Professional development continued to be identified as an area for growth, so all liaisons were provided the opportunity to attend the virtual National Family and Community Engagement Conference in the spring. We are now in our second year of coaching this team. We have increased from 30 liaisons to 41, 13 elementary and 28 secondary. We continue to use the position framework to guide this role and have sharpened the process for identifying at-risk students for middle school. Our professional development has also expanded. Liaisons were provided 5 professional development days this school year, 2 before the school year began to give them an opportunity to learn more about their role and how they could better support their schools, and 1 in the fall and then 2 in the spring. We've continued to host PLCs for each level, elementary school, middle school, and high school, twice per month, as well as school visits 1 to 2 times per month, depending on the need of the specific school or the specific liaison. Weekly team updates are sent out every Monday, along with highlighted resources available in our community. The FACE department has also created a robust community resource guide to support the work the team does with families and students. The team has begun to work together outside of our PLCs, sharing resources with each other, and this has been especially exciting to watch and to hear about. Highlights from this year that I think are really important is the launch of Teddy's Closet at Roosevelt High School. This was a project that was started last year during COVID, and it is a room inside of Roosevelt where there are clothes, hygiene items, coats, cold weather gear, and food that liaisons have really utilized that as a hub, and even schools that don't have the liaison position have been able to connect with the liaison at Roosevelt to help fulfill needs at their schools, and that's everywhere from early childhood all the way through high school. We've been able to help support through Teddy's Closet. For next school year, we anticipate further expansion of the role by an increase of at least 5 liaisons at the secondary level, and we are working to expand professional development based on the needs identified this school year, and we'll work with schools to increase family engagement and student achievement and growth. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Actually,
okay.
So you have right now 41 parent liaisons,
Yes.
and you're planning for 5 more at the secondary level. How many of those 41 currently are at secondary?
28 are at secondary, and that's middle school and high school combined.
Okay, a little quick math, that's like 2 per school?
No, so there is, some of the schools have chosen to do 1 by academy. So Guilford is increasing to 4, East has 4, Auburn is increasing theirs, I think, to 7. Jefferson has 4, it is increasing by 1, so there'll be 5, they're bringing on a bilingual, and then Roosevelt has 1. So the increased number is more at high school than it is at middle school.
And of the 5 that will be joining, will they also be at high school, or will they be
They're
at the middle school?
exclusively at high school.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
I had a question.
I did too.
Oh, you can go first.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do all schools have parent liaisons right now, or are there any vacancies?
Not all schools have parent liaisons. It is a site-based budgeted position that they're able to choose from the Title I menu. As far as vacancies go, I believe Ellis has a vacancy right now, and McIntosh has a vacancy because they're increasing from 1 parent liaison to 2. And I believe those are the only 2 positions that are currently open. Take that. Auburn, I'm not sure if they've posted theirs for next year.
Right, but you said there are 13 elementary, so there's a lot of schools without peer.
Yes, there are a lot of schools without the position.
Thank you.
Ms. Stanford?
So tell me,
what does a typical parent liaison do?
Sure. So it's going to vary if they're at elementary or if they're at secondary. Secondary parent liaisons focus more on students that are identified as being academically at risk, whereas elementary, our focus is more on, they both focus a lot on family engagement. Elementary, it's definitely more of that family engagement and working to bring families into the school, because we know that if we can increase our family engagement, we can increase student academic achievement and growth.
Okay, so what does a day in the life of a parent liaison look like at, say, Auburn High School?
Oh, okay. So Auburn, they each have a caseload. They're divided out by academies. And so let's say we have our freshman academy. Our freshman academy at Auburn has 2 parent liaisons. Each liaison has a designated caseload of students that they're going to be working with. At the beginning of the school year, I worked very closely with Amy Gannon to create kind of an MTSS rubric for the parent liaisons for academic success. And that's meeting with the students that have been identified as needing that Tier 2 approach, which is typically failing 2 to 3 of their core curriculum classes, and making a plan to get back on track. So that would mean going into their classwork to see what courses they're missing, connecting the students with those teachers, and coming up with like a success plan for that student. And that's what they're going to be doing with the students on their caseload with that Tier 2 intervention. And that includes calling the parents to make sure that the parent is also aware of what's happening, and working very closely with those students to get them back to where they need to be.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we're going to move right along. On Tuesday, April 19th, Dr. Jarrett lauded the heroic efforts of 3 bus drivers who kept RPS 205 kids safe in precarious situations. The 3 drivers are Mark Hansen, Ronald Baldwin, and Yvette Jordan. To make the event even more special, the West Middle School 8th grade Rotary Club awarded the bus drivers with student-written notes of gratitude along with a small gift. The club has been working on a service project called Random Acts of Kindness. The group raised funds to be able to deliver random acts of kindness around our community. I want to thank you, Mark, Ronald, and Yvette, for your dedication to your job and to the students. And thank you, West Middle School 8th grade Rotary Club, for your Random Acts of Kindness project. What a great way to spread gratitude and joy in our community.
David, do you have an idea of what each of those bus drivers did that was?
I am going to defer to the one who lauded them in the first place. I think he can express it with the appropriate sort of.
Well, the board received updates on each one of these events separately, but we had one bus driver that had his bus being followed and did the right thing and pulled into one of the local police precincts to keep students safe. Another that had to, boy, it's been a few weeks here. Let's see, another one that had a really tragic situation where we had a rear end, and because the students were following their protocols while there was a tragedy in the community, the students were all safe. And Mike, there was one more.
Yeah, Ronald was the driver where he was pulled up to the curb dropping off a student, and a car pulled up between the curb and the bus and actually was shooting. We're not sure what direction, but Ronald was able to keep the student on the bus and pull away from that scene, keeping everybody safe.
Thank you. Even though we get updates, it's nice to publicly make people aware of their what they've done. Thank you.
I was just going to add, and we will get to, we've invited them to our next board meeting, and we will get to recognize them in person. So,
Thank you very much for that. The 5th grade students at the STEAM, I'm sorry? Oh, sorry. The 5th grade students at the STEAM Academy at Haskell hosted a fundraiser on Friday, April 22nd to raise money for a field trip to iFly in Rosemont, Illinois. The students invited people they knew, as well as staff, to play games of chess. Even the mayor got involved. He stopped by for a match and posted on his social media saying, "I had a blast at RPS 205 Haskell School fundraiser where I got beat in chess." It was said of his playing that he was getting a chess tutoring session. In total, 31 fifth graders played 60 games against 23 adults, and they raised $814, which I think was a pretty fun and clever idea. It's a great way to raise some funds, so good job, Haskell students. This week's top item on the 205 Vibe was register now for spring and summer RPS 205 athletics fundraiser. Last week's top item was Rockford School Board launches air conditioning air quality improvement plan. And our next podcast will be published soon. Tune in to hear from Kim Nelson, the Executive Director of Early Childhood at Rockford Public Schools. For our 205 Vibe feature, we'd like to take you on a virtual art gallery walk. From the 205 Vibe blog page on the RPS 205 website, you can access a gallery of student artwork from elementary, middle, and high school students across our district. You just simply click on the name of the school to see the artwork. Our talented students have expressed themselves so creatively in these art pieces. Please take some time to browse through and appreciate their efforts. I did spend some time over the weekend and today going through some of these galleries, and the talent, even down to the elementary level, and it doesn't really matter what school you pick, is pretty extraordinary. There were some images from Risa, from Ellis, from East, from Jefferson, from Haskell that were really just super impressive. If you have any sort of interest or an eye towards art, take a look at these images. They're beautiful. Got a lot of great images. So you have all been provided with a copy of the education legislation that has passed both chambers. You've got it in hard copy, and it's also on board docs. We focused on bills that addressed the teacher shortage, standardized testing, and student discipline. If you have any questions, please reach out to Laura Fromm or Laura Lammer, or if you want to reach out to me, I'll take a crack at trying to intelligently discuss those with you. Our next update is going to come from the district's new Director of Athletics, Activities, and Program Development, Dawn Williamson. Welcome to 205.
Thank you. Again, I'm Dawn Williamson, the district's new athletic director. And what I've been telling people, this is day 12, so obviously I'm an expert and have no questions about anything. But I'm excited to talk to you guys about something that we're bringing to the district for the summer. We're going to be launching some elite athletic camps for our RPS 205 students this summer in partnership with the Park District. Okay, these camps are going to focus on our elementary and middle school students and the families, to show them what it takes to be an RPS 205 athlete. We're going to host camps that cover 3 areas: basketball, volleyball, and sports wellness and conditioning. The basketball and volleyball are going to be held at UW Health Sports Factory, and the sports wellness and conditioning are going to be held at Guilford. And those are also going to involve some introduction to sports like tennis, soccer, track and field. Each of these 3 camps are going to focus on fundamental skills and development, mentoring, nutrition, health and wellness. Camps are going to be led by RPS 205 coaches with support from Rockford Park District staff, as well as our high school student athletes. The goal is to build our feeders programs so that our athletes are learning what it takes, right, to participate and to be successful at athletics. Campers will be grouped into age and skill-appropriate teams to receive personalized coaching. Camps are for both beginning players and also those who are looking to further their development. We're providing transportation for students, plus breakfast and lunch. We're hoping students take advantage of each of the camps. They can mix and match, or they can go to a couple of the same ones over the 3-week period. Camps are free and only available to RPS 205 students. We're kicking off registration on Wednesday, tomorrow. Look for our flyers and posters, plus emails and text messages to families and staff. Are there any questions? All right, thanks, y'all.
Did you say they were all elementary?
Nope, it's going to be elementary and middle school.
And middle, okay.
2nd grade through 8th grade, kind of depending on the camp.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a question.
Oh. Ms. Pearson.
Yes, and what method was the community made aware of this, or has it?
That's coming, right?
Okay.
So tomorrow it's going to start going out via text, marketing programs through the Peach Jar and things like that with schools, and principals have also been known about this. We're also communicating with the Park District, and they're also going to have their own kind of marketing efforts on their end.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to come back at you and say I've heard from parents in the district about some of the wonderful programs we have going this summer, just how great they are, but how they filled up in one day.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping your camps do as well. But if the word hasn't gone out yet, so people aren't aware of them, so that they're prepared tomorrow when registration opens up, where would they go?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I mean, let's just say that you know, they're not going to Peach Jar. They're not.
Sure.
They just wanted to look at what we have. Where would they go?
Yep, absolutely. Kathy Baer Eberly, I'm the Senior Communications Manager. You did a lovely job. That's why I had a seat that and just to support. So our website, this page that we're looking at right now, will go live. Once that's live, we'll send a text message to all of our families who have students who are going into those grade levels. We'll also send an email out to all of those families, again, with the link and the information to sign up now. In addition to all of our social media channels, the Park District is also going to print out actual paper copies of flyers. So we have both flyers and posters going out as well. We'll share it with local media. I think hopefully we'll get everything covered. And then word of mouth is always really big as well. But our survey data shows that our families really want text messages and emails, so we've been trying to do that much more instead of our robocalls to make sure that we reach everybody.
Well, and I asked the question because I know of a particular family that is moving to the district this next year, and they were actually now, and so they were looking at, they went to the Welcome Center and they were looking at our summer programs, and they were just all filled, everything that they would have wanted, which is what we want here. So it's a great thing, but for people like that who would not be getting text messages yet because their children aren't enrolled in our district, so just go to the website.
Yeah, it'll all be on the website, on our social media channels as well. And I think we want to have as many students as possible participate, and
We don't have a maximum.
Yep, and looking at options if this goes well, perhaps we can extend it as well.
Great. Thank you.
And could I ask one more question? Oh, before Ms. Pierce, go ahead, Ms. Pearson. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So is there a maximum of number of students
question.
for enrollment?
We do not. What we have is a ratio, so 10 students to 1 coach. So if we go crazy with our numbers and it's awesome, then we'll just add more coaches to sustain that.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
All right, thanks you guys.
Next, I'd like to ask Maureen Kirschman to come back to the podium and give us an update on the Live, Learn, Play calls to action.
Hello again. Updates for you on our call to action. I was here last month and gave you an update on waves 1 and 2, and I am very excited to share with you that we have now moved into the community engagement phase of this work, and we are very, very excited with the progress that's being made in the direction that we're heading to. We've reviewed all proposals for wave 1 and wave 2, and our first round of 6 proposals will be on the May board meetings, and they're all from wave 1. These proposals proposals were scored by a team with the rubric provided to organizations in the Call to Action Toolkit. And we are also partnering with both Alignment Rockford and the Wabongo Leadership Council to help support this work. These organizations will provide mobilization for Wave 3. They will provide proposal preparation services for organizations that may need a little bit more support, as well as progress monitoring for the organizations that we do enter into agreements with. For the June agenda, we have 12 Wave 2 proposals that we are hoping to be able to move forward with, and Wave 3 opens June 1st. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, do you have a question?
I do not have a question.
Wonderful.
I do have a comment, though, and I am absolutely thrilled to see the level of engagement from the community to partner with helping our students succeed. So this is super exciting. This is the sort of thing that I think the whole community has been asking for, and it's happening. So thank you very much for your efforts, and thank you to all the people who are contributing.
Thank you.
I actually have a question. Just curious, how many, well, maybe we don't know how many, but what would you say the feedback has been for the grassroots organizations that have been interested in partnering more with the district? I've had some dialogue with different organizations over the course of time since this has been presented to the public. So just want to hear your feedback about what has their input been? Have we been seeing, like, hopefully an influx in them applying for some of these funds?
Yeah, so we had a substantial number of grassroots organizations apply. We are partnering with the Wabongo Leadership Council, who will help some of those organizations refine their proposals so we can hope to move forward with them. I've been setting up meetings with some of those organizations as well, and moving into the community to meet with them at their organizations to learn more about what it is that they're wanting to do and how we can work together to build that partnership. So it's been positive feedback. I would say overall it's been really, really positive, and we've been working very hard to help remove the barriers that organizations have identified.
Okay, I appreciate that heads up about that. And so you're saying that if they're having any complications with the application process, that these meetings they're able to get that additional assistance if needed?
Absolutely. If there's a specific organization that does need help that we've not received their proposal yet, they can definitely reach out to me. I've been actively working with those organizations to either connect them to the right resources, meeting with them myself, or setting up a meeting with somebody on my team who's also helping with the proposals.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Ms. Pearson.
Thank you. So prior to the application process, were the guidelines made clear and the expectations where it relates to the application?
So we did put out the Call to Action Toolkit, which did give a pretty clear guide of what they were supposed to be submitting their proposals for. We have gone back and forth a little bit on what the grant is able to pay for, as we've learned more about the grant allowability throughout this process as well. So we did set out pretty clear guidance for them, and it's just been helping organizations more refine what we need in order to be in compliance with that grant, and just communicating that back to organizations.
So the grant guidelines weren't 100% clear before the start of the process. Am I understanding you correctly?
Do you want to?
I'm sorry, Ms. Pearson. When you say they weren't 100% clear, I just want to understand your question.
Sure. So she indicated that as the time progressed, they learned additional information relating to the grant. So my question was, were the guidelines for the grant clear at the start, if that's...
Yeah, I think to Ms. Kirschman's point, I think clear in the way we put them out. Those who needed help, who needed further clarification, we were able to work with those organizations to kind of explain whatever questions or they may have had. So I would think clear to the point to where they were clear enough for them to apply. They went through the process. They were able to submit those proposals, and any additional questions we were able to help them kind of understand and further clarify.
May I please add to that? Some of the proposals contain things that were slightly unanticipated on behalf of the district. So, for example, some requested support in purchasing vehicles or support in paying for administrative staff to run the program. So things that just aren't typically anticipated as a part of the request. But Communications has worked with those organizations to still try to attain the goals outside of going afoul of the grant requirements.
So just for clarity, the grant requirements, so we apply for a grant and we get guidelines or expectations or what this grant can be used for, correct?
Yes, Mr. Brown can probably speak more to it than I can, but the ARP ESSER funds were put out there rapidly in response to the pandemic. And then as they rolled out the program, additional federal guidance was offered as, circumstances arose.
Okay, so they added, so they added information to meet the criteria to participate in being a recipient of the grant. Am I understanding you correctly?
Well, the funds were put out there, and I would say additional clarification was offered by the ISBE and federal guidance.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want one more thing, and I want to throw out there. You had mentioned, Ms. Goldsmith, that there's like some things that were unexpected that came up, like some people that were requesting for vehicle purchases and things of that nature. So is that covered under the ARP ESSER funds, or is that something that we're not able to compensate for?
No, we cannot make capital expenditures. And I think some of it was just people presented many innovative ideas, and they were coming to the table with some ideas that were unexpected. And so in order to, try to reach the spirit of what they were working with, we would try to offer different solutions or revise the proposals. And Maureen can speak to it more clearly, probably with better examples than I can. But those were two that stood out at the top of my mind as these were ideas, but we wouldn't have anticipated that they would have asked us to provide administrative support. The district itself is, understaffed in some areas, so those kind of requests just couldn't be accommodated.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. That just stood out in my mind because transportation is normally a huge barrier when you're trying to offer, additional support to youth. So thank you for that.
I'll just add, Ms. Muhammad, there are other alternatives, right? It's not to say that we won't do, there are other ways to get at, for example, to your point, to provide transportation through an organization without us buying a vehicle. So that's kind of some of the back and forth. But it is permissible in a variety of ways, but just not that way, to Mrs. Goldsmith's point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Please remember to check the board calendar on board docs to see upcoming district and community events. If you would like to suggest an event to be added, please email Laura Laumer. And that concludes this presentation, unless anybody has any questions. Thank you. I'll pass it back to you, Mrs. McCulloch.
Appreciate that, Mr. Siegel. Mr. Connor, you're up next with the Performance and Monitoring Committee portion of the meeting.
Yep. As I understand it, Mrs. Detman can't be here tonight. Is there somebody that is her backup if there's a lot of questions?
I think between Mrs. Goldsmith and I would say Mrs. Goldsmith may be the top backup because these are policy heavy. Yeah, but I will jump in on some of the non-policy heavy topics if anyone has something from consent they want to discuss.
Okay. So we've got a number of policies. Number one, there was one policy that was moved, if you saw the original, and that's policy 4.32. That's been moved to the May 31st Committee of the Whole agenda. Then if you look at what we have out there, We have policy 4.170 is being revised to reflect that parents, guardians may opt their children out of lockdown drills. To the extent students opt out, then they must be provided with alternative safety education. Policy 5.10 reflects changes to the Illinois Human Rights Act and the Victims Economic Security and Safety Act, adds prohibition against discrimination on the basis of work authorization status and crimes of violence in general. Policy 5.30 is revised to comply with the mandate that administration notifies TRS when a teacher has been convicted of a felony. Policy 5.100 reflects recent statutory mandate that school districts must provide evidence-informed training for school personnel on the mandated reporting requirements, as well as on preventing, recognizing, reporting, and responding to child sexual abuse and grooming behavior. The revised policy also sets the time frame for completing this training. Specifically, new hires must complete the training within 3 months of their hire, and all other staff must complete the training on an annual basis. Policy 5.330, the policy is revised to explicitly state that all employees are expected and required to accurately and truthfully report their time worked. Likewise, they are expected and required to accurately and truthfully report time taken off work. Last policy 7.60 currently indicates that children of military personnel must provide proof of living within the district within 60 days after the date of initial enrollment. The policy is being revised to reflect a change in law, extending the length of time to present such proof to 6 months after the date of initial enrollment. So that's a summarization of the policies. Is there any discussion on any of those? Mr. Siegel.
Thank you. In regards to 6A, the board policy 4.170, operational services safety, have there been concerns that have been raised within our own district regarding our safety training offerings? Okay. And
no, you need to press the button. Yeah.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what are some of the alternative ideas or offerings on safety training for those students who would opt out?
It's my understanding that there'll be some curriculum offerings related to safety, but I assume that the intent is not to alarm those children or otherwise cause undue anxiety. So I'm not sure what those curriculum offerings would look like.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have anything more on that particular one.
If you have others.
I guess just a comment that 5.10, 5.30, and 5.100 I think are indicative that policy is evolving with our need to recruit and retain and have the best possible staff in our school district. We've got plenty of legislation addressing teacher shortage in innovative ways, and welcoming in people who are going to have maybe a slightly different set of criteria. It's going to be important that our policy reflects not only welcoming them, but making sure that they get all of the onboarding and training that they need in order to provide a high quality education to our students. So these words are going to be weird to hear, but I'm really happy to see this policy having been created. Thank you.
Okay, is that it? Ms. Mohammed?
Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on real quick Board Policy 5.10. And I guess can we get a little bit more information about what methods will be attempted in order to diversify our staff here? I know we've talked about the need for more representation just on different levels within the district, but when I read it, it to me seems to be things that we should have kind of already been doing. So what are we going to do differently now that this is a board policy in order to achieve this outcome? Or are we still working on that?
5.10.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The 6B.
Yes, 5.10. So the Illinois Human Rights Act already, prior to these additions, already spelled out a whole class of people that we should not be discriminating against. We shouldn't be discriminating based on gender, disability, sex, race, all those things. And to that list, they added work authorization status and crimes of violence. So there was already a Victims of Crime Act out there that allowed some exceptions for people who were involved in, like, for example, domestic violence incidents. If they happened to come to late work or needed to go to court for certain matters, there were exceptions there for that domestic violence or violent situations in the employment setting. This language here acknowledges that they've added categories to the Human Rights Act related to crimes of violence and work authorization status.
Okay, so it's not really speaking to then necessarily diversifying, it's just adding additional categories for other pools of people to be able to apply.
Additional protected categories.
Okay.
Yep, so that you cannot look at someone's, I guess it would be their immigration employment status to discriminate against them for that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Mr. Rollins.
I just listened to the comments. I wonder if there's a misunderstanding here. 5.10 is not a new policy. What you have in front of you is what lawyers call a red line. The only changes are the only changes to the policy are the things that show up in red or in red and underlined. But this is an existing policy, and you can go down to the very bottom where it gives all the revision dates. I mean, this policy was first adopted in 1997. Then revised in 1998, 2010, 2012, 2018, 2021, and now it's going to be revised again. So this policy has been in place for a long time.
Okay, thanks. That's why we're talking about it, so appreciate all the clarification.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Stanford, did you have yours on? No, that's hard to see. Sorry. Oh, Ms. Pearson.
Thank you. While this has been an existing policy, I understand that, but it was just a little thought-provoking. So how do we measure and how would our community know that equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment is really happening? I hear so frequently about, and I get a closer look, so I'm confident that the narrative of our district is changing. I see the effort, and it is much appreciated. But when asked if a particular position comes up, if there were how many minorities applied, the response is typically they're not required to indicate their race. However, them not being required does not mean they did not indicate their race. So I think in efforts to really offer more assurance that the policy is indeed in place and functioning and followed, that when given an opportunity to research that, to clarify a particular race or whatever the question may be, that information be looked at and provided. It's just a thought. Thank you.
Anyone else? So I have a question related on this matter, and Mr. Zediker or Ms. Goldsmith, if you would answer, can we force people to answer those questions if they choose not to?
Typically, the protected category questions, we do not ask those questions, and all guidance for people interviewing or anything along those lines, you're not to ask those kinds of questions. So, for example, if I were interviewing and I started talking about, back when I walked 50 miles to school, it may insinuate that I'm of a certain age, a protected category, over 40. But you should not engage in a discussion with me during the interview where you ask me explicitly my age.
Okay, so we don't have those statistics. And is that related to federal law?
Wait, when you...
We don't have the statistics.
We have EEOC reports that we submit related to related to race and I guess qualifications. Mr. Zediker can provide additional detail.
Yeah, the EEOC reports that Ms. Goldsmith is referring to are our current employees. So when we have an applicant for positions, they have the opportunity to provide their race, gender, other identifiable characteristics, but it is not mandatory to complete the application. Therefore, when a hiring manager receives that application, they may or may not see some of the identifiable characteristics when they pull that. Now, once we hire and complete all of the background for those employees, then yes, we would have race, ethnicity, other characteristics for all of our employees, which we would report to the federal government.
Ms. Pearson?
So in other words, the question of race is on the application as well as the date of birth, or no?
Yes, those are questions asked and ones that they can choose to answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Oh, Mr. Rollins.
You don't actually ask people to put their date of birth on their applications, do they?
No.
No. Thanks.
Okay. Any other policies?
Can I ask a question about, not to belabor what we're talking about, but what you said, Mr. Connor, was that we wouldn't have good statistics on our applicants because people can choose to, so there's no reason to mine the data because it's not a complete picture of the application pool. Would that be correct?
When I've been asked to pull that information prior, what we break those categories down are to individuals who did respond and the categories for which they responded. But there's also then a category that elected. There's a box that chooses not to respond. And then there's also a category that just leaves it blank. So we try to break it down when we pull that information to make sure that we categorize that appropriately.
I only ask because people want the picture, but we can't really get the picture of our...
It makes it more challenging.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, back to what we've got. Those are the policies, and that we have consent items. The draft of May 10th has what I'll call our standards. We've got the board policies, and I don't see anything else that's non-standard on that. And we also have the 24th, and I'm looking at that, and I don't see anything there. So is there anything anybody saw on either that they want to bring up in terms of performance and monitoring? Mr. Rollins?
Yeah, on the 10th, we have the Auburn and Guilford tennis court resurfacing. I almost hate to bring this up, but but I'm bringing it up. So on the Guilford tennis court resurfacing, what are we resurfacing, and is it consistent with what we've decided in the past what the school district is going to do.
This is actually just maintenance work. This has actually been will be pulled from the 10th agenda because we did not receive any bids. We'll be repackaging and bidding it in the fall. Most of the tennis court contractors that do this type of work are already booked for the summer. So that's why we received no bids. But this is just common 5 to 7 year maintenance on the tennis courts. And this is what we should be seeing as we look out 3 to 5 years going forward. Typical maintenance on these courts. So we're extending the life of the courts, getting the full life.
Okay, maybe the issue last time was different. Are they still closed outside of school hours?
No, they are open through outside of school hours until 10 p.m. per our discussion last summer throughout the summer, but then locked up at after 10 o'clock each night.
Is that because we entered into an agreement with the Park District?
We re-entered into an agreement with the Park District. They are reimbursing us for some electrical costs.
All right, thanks.
Ms. McCulloch?
They've also had Park District vehicle police there.
Can you speak into that, or you can't be heard?
I pass Guilford all the time, and they have held up to their end of the bargain where there is a vehicle there. I'm assuming someone's in it. I never go check. Just from the Park District Police.
Correct. That was another part of the agreement, that the Park District Police would make rounds throughout the parking lot throughout the year.
Yeah, so I'm always pleased to see that. We were doing something at Jefferson's tennis courts too, though.
Correct. That is actually coming to next board meeting. The existing courts will be demolished and a new court will be in place. We're reducing, currently Jefferson's has 8 courts. That will be reduced to our typical 6 courts, so it'll reflect what Auburn and East look like.
And will they be under the same restrictions in terms of public use?
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. That's all for performance and monitoring.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Mr. Rollins, it's your turn, and Planning and Development Committee.
Thank you. So under item A is a proposal to give Rockford Promise $100,000. You all know what Rockford Promise is. It's funding scholarships for RPS 205 students to go to college. Sort of the background here is the school district itself can't give money for college scholarships because that's outside of our role. But one of the discussions that we've been having as a school district with Rockford Promise is for Rockford Promise to start doing some additional work with our K through 12 students to help prep them to think about going to college and to be ready to go to college. And so what the proposal here is that we would give Rockford Promise $100,000 to support that work, where they're engaging with our students to try to get our students more ready to go to college and be accepted into college. So does anybody have any questions about that, Mr. Connor?
Yeah, so what if they don't live in the city of Rockford and attend public schools? Are they going to... are they going to go classroom to classroom on this, or?
I don't know the answer to that. Dr. Jarrett? Or?
Mr. Connor, I think what's nice about this investment is there would be nothing that would prohibit, obviously there wouldn't be Rockford Promise specific counseling, but if there were general presentations that were provided, for example, about going to Northern Illinois University, non-City of Rockford students could be part of that. Another potential advantage here with the dollars is it would give the ability for, as Rockford Promise has these additional dollars invested in it to provide staff, this would potentially free fundraising dollars up to support all RPS students, which is the overall mission. Because remember, the history of this is Rockford Promise raised well over $1 million prior to the city's investment. Now the city invests $1.5 million a year specifically for City of Rockford students. And so one potential future focus of fundraising will be to further support expansion for all RPS students with Rock Valley College, Rockford Rockford University opportunities, as well as NIU housing opportunities for City of Rockford residents. So I think there will be some real benefit. I think all children in our district will benefit from this investment because it will allow Rockford Promise to continue to expand.
Sure. Do you have a sense of time frame in which the expansion might occur?
Well, Rockford Promise already annually supports as many Rock Valley College students as they can annually, as well as Rockford University students. I think we're at around 6 or 8 that we're doing this year. Mrs. Fumo's in the audience. She could speak to the details. But I think what has to happen now is a sustained fundraising campaign to both maximize the impact of the city's gift as well, or annual investment, I should say. I don't know that it's a gift. And also continue to look at ways we can expand Rockford Promise's support of all RPS students.
And out of curiosity, is one of the limits that the students that are, say, out in the county and not represented by really any municipality, or those students that are in those municipalities that are represented, I'm assuming that none of them have contributed to this?
That is correct. The only municipality that has made a contribution formally is the $1.5 million annual investment that the City of Rockford has made.
Okay, so one of the things, as this expands, I think it would make sense to perhaps go, I'm especially thinking of the county because there's a lot of unincorporated areas within RPS 205, as well as some of the municipalities that, what would it take to get some involvement there for those students that are outside? But I do point this out all the time, is that representing a district where there are vast tracts where there are folks who are at the county or another municipality that their participation in this would be important. And I think it's a great organization, by the way. I think Rockford Promise, I've really supported it. So it's not that, but the expansion to the others, I think, would be important over time.
Mrs. McCulloch, do you have a question?
Well, for clarity, there are still Rockford Promise scholarships available to county, our students who are in the system, but they're just for RVC and for Rockford University. They can't go to NIU. That's what
Is that true?
That is correct, Mrs. McCulloch.
So if you are not a resident of the city of Rockford, you can still get a Rockford Promise to Rock Valley and
Rockford University.
And Rockford University. Okay.
So they're not totally cut out of the picture.
Okay. But I did not know that those two institutions.
Yeah, I just learned this week because I had a parent who had asked the question. They thought they were out of everything as well.
Well, that was kind of my understanding or misunderstanding. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. Thank you.
But for other clarity, kind of, what is, I'm not sure, and I support anything having to do with more information to students so that they can make better choices and be better prepared. And I'm always surprised at how many students, I'm going to look at students, you guys know about Rockford Promise, and your schools are sharing information with you, and you know what you need to do to get to it. Okay. So they're yeses for anybody who can't see them. But what exactly for the $100,000 that we invest in Rockford Promise are they bringing people into our schools? Are they actually hiring somebody to be in the schools to work directly with the students? I heard you talk about the fact that they might have sessions where they talk about what you would get at NIU or what you would get with RVC or the like, but I don't have a clear picture of how this money's spent.
Thank you, Mrs. McCulloch. In the background statement, there are a list of bullet points that talk about current services that are provided. So globally, this would add a position that would be sustained with this investment and would do two things. One, this investment would allow that to occur. to provide these direct services to our students, and two, it would prevent Rockford Promise from needing to privately fundraise for those dollars. So those privately fundraised dollars could be invested to further expand scholarships. This is not a limiting list, but just to start, processing applications, verifying eligibility, and again, all this is in concert with school counselors who are certainly helping as well. It's not to say this one person would do this all by him or herself. Finalizing contracts, assisting with additional financial aid, responding to parents to help them navigate. I won't read all of the bullets, but this is about expanded outreach. This is about partnering with counselors. This is about getting into middle school or even upper elementary school to raise visibility. One of the outcomes we hope to see with this increased visibility, and we're going to be tracking this, in addition to our on-track rate, we're going to be tracking our rate for students who have a 3.0 grade point average, because we want to be measuring the number of students who are eligible for Rockford Promise as a higher standard metric that we can use to look at our high school and even middle school on-track performance. This position is not necessary to do that, but I think it speaks to a larger benefit of raising visibility as early as possible. We want children to aspire at an early age to achieve that 3.0 grade point average rather than sophomore, junior, senior year when things may be too late because the math is working against them. So this increased visibility in partnership with our school counselors, MTSS teams, I think is going to be a really important value add for the district.
So it's actually an employee that will be a Rockford Promise employee coming into the buildings to do all that work, right?
That is correct. They will be mobilizing existing staff and or adding staff to make sure that these outcomes are delivered.
Okay. Could you give us the numbers for this year of Promise students who did, I don't know that you know them off the top of your head. You said Mrs. Fumo might know them.
Have them right here in the background. So,
thank you. I'm not looking at
in 2021, we had 220 applications and 140 were awarded collectively. 96 of those were at NIU. This year, we haven't completely finalized it, but 300 seniors applied for the Rockford Promise and 175. So we've really doubled almost the NIU Rockford Promise in 1 year. 8 are going to RU, but RVC is still pending because of fundraising targets. There's tremendous demand, and it's been really exciting to see the rapid growth of this program. And again, I think this is helping to be aspirational for students. That first class last year, I can't speak to the details of this class yet, was a huge percentage of those students were first generation college students, and really exciting to see the growth continue. And I think we want to keep the momentum going here.
And despite the numbers being in our background report, that doesn't mean everybody listening or people in the audience are looking at those numbers. So I do appreciate your sharing that. Thank you.
I have a question, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep going the same
That's
time
all right.
as you.
We're on the same vibe. My question is this. The RVC candidate applicants that we're still reviewing, so there's potentially not funding for all of those students that qualify?
That's correct. Mrs. Fumo, who has been a real chief architect of this work throughout the entire decade it's been occurring, could provide some of the details. But I think there are significant dollars that have been privately raised to support the RVC investment, and I think they are hoping to raise additional dollars to ensure that all demand can be met. Mrs. Fumo, if you would, you can speak more specifically to the progress on the Rock Valley College portion.
We had 104 applicants to RVC this year, which is double what we've had in the previous years. And so before we make a final decision, we went back to some of our larger funders and, presented them with all the application options. And hopefully we'll hear in the next week if they're willing to fund all of them.
So we may have to say no to some students?
Up until last year, we did that every year. So that's just part of our growth as a local Promise organization. Last year was super exciting because we were able to say yes to every single eligible applicant for the first time. So our vision is to continue to do that for all students. And just to speak to some of Mr. Connor's concerns, we are in the process of negotiating adding additional partner colleges. So we hope to add 2 more regional colleges next year, and those would not be limited to City of Rockford only. They would be for any RPS student.
And to be clear, the NIU city portion, no one that achieved the 3.0 grade point average and was eligible was turned away. We have plenty of room to grow there. We also were able to raise over $100,000 for additional housing support privately this year. So that part is fully funded. It's the growth that we're managing is for the non-city of Rockford portion of this, as well as students who are interested in Rock Valley as opposed to NIU.
I know Ms. Mohammed, can I ask a tag-on question to that? Was it just the number? You said that there's 104 applicants and you need additional. How many do you currently have?
How many
funds for?
Can we currently fund? Safely, we can currently fund about 40 of those. And I say safely because when we look at final, we're a last dollar organization, so after we look at the FAFSA and how much students can contribute, the expected family contribution, or EFC, we try to make sure that we have banked enough money for each student in case their financial situation changes, that our promise to them can be realized no matter what. So to be on the safe side at this point, we're not willing to fund more than 40 because we don't want to have to renege on our promise, obviously.
Ms. Mohammed, did you have a question?
Yes, so I was looking through the application and just looking at the plan for how Rockford Promise wants to be more supportive of our PS students. It stands out to me that at 12th grade, there's a goal to do the mentor pairings for the accepted seniors and to do like mentors meet and greets. And I know this school year, there was kind of like a shortage for mentors, if I'm not mistaken. And I know the mayor had asked, for more people to step up to the plate for that. And so I'm just curious on, have you guys been able to fill that need? And what's the plan to try to get more mentors? Because it is hard trying to get committed people to step up to that type of role.
Yes, thank you for asking that question, because that was a big need for us with the exponential growth that we had. So we researched some different mentor models of other Promise programs around the country. Our mentor model was actually cutting edge when you look at Promise programs around the country. But we've been reaching out and sort of doing some research to see what else could work. And so for this year, we are going to do mentor circles. So we're going to take 8 to 10 students who have similar majors or career interests and pair them with someone in that field or career path. Another need that we've seen this year with the kids coming out of the COVID quarantine is there's a need for kids to have friendships and be together. And so we're hoping that putting them in a circle with kids who have similar interests and goals for career will also help. And then we'll have them paired with 1 or 2 adults who will go through our mentor training. And so that will help us cover the field of need. And we currently have enough mentors to do that.
Thank you for that. What's the time commitment look like for a mentor?
Great question. The time commitment is probably 2 to 5 hours a month, depending on the month, what's going on in the kids' lives, how connected you become to your circle of kids, and how much they reach out to you. So all the students will be participating. Part of the Rockford Promise agreement is that they will participate in monthly academic support informational sessions, and the mentors will participate in those as well. And then there will be separate meetings just with the mentor circle and their mentor. And so we've already been talking to organizations around the community. We've spoken with Woodward, we've spoken with the hospitals, we've spoken with several businesses, the Chamber of Commerce, Morgan Stanley. We need more always. Part of the vision of Rockford Promise is to have connectivity to all the businesses in the community, because we're curating this workforce for them.
So for people that are interested in wanting to sign up for mentorship, should they reach out to you specifically, or?
On the website, rockfordpromise.org, there is a link to sign up to be a mentor.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the Rockford Promise? If not, this will be brought to the board for approval at the May 10th, 2022 board meeting. Now we'll preview the consent items. The following items will be presented on the consent agenda for the May 10th, 2022 board meeting. Number one, a master's cohort for math with NIU. Just as a reminder, we've approved something similar for ELA. This has to do with getting more of our teachers to have enough credit in a content area that they can teach dual credit courses that where our kids can get college credit as well as high school credit. And so we started one of those for ELA, and I think that one was with Rockford University. The administration would like to offer a master's cohort for 20 teachers this fall to earn 18 hours of math coursework. Once the teachers have completed 9 credit hours, they can begin teaching dual credit math, calculus, or statistics on our high school campuses. Does anybody have any questions about that proposal? Okay, hearing none. Number 2, with ARP-ESSER, this is also on May 10th. With ARP-ESSER planning, Illinois P20 Council has given recommendations for schools on how to best utilize their funding to support students. Specifically, the funding devoted to learning loss as defined by the United States Department of Education is designed to target students' academic and social emotional needs by extending the day and/or year. A community call to action was sent out on January 15th, requesting community organizations to develop proposals to help support our students. The following contracts will be presented on the consent agenda for the May 10th, 2022 board meeting: Alignment Rockford, Discovery Center, Comprehensive Community Solutions, Kendall Sherman Foundation, Rockford Area Arts Council, and the Wabongo Leadership Council. And I'll just preview that there will be, at the next consent agenda on May 24th, there's an additional set coming forward for the African American Resource Center at the Booker T. Washington Center and the Rockford Park District at Washington Park. So I know you all had a chance to ask Ms. Kirschman questions before. I think probably you got a lot of your questions answered, but are there any other additional questions about these particular contracts that are being awarded on May 10th and May 24th? Okay. Hearing none, I think I'm done with the Planning and Development Committee.
All right. So now I'll go on to Governance Committee, and we'll thank our students who are here to listen and find out what goes on, and good luck to you for the rest of the year.
Go Knights.
All right. So Governance Committee has some policies under it as well that are being updated. So policy 2.110 clarifies the board president's role and responsibility to ensure quorum of board members are physically present at all board meetings. Is not applicable if there is an exception under the Open Meetings Act. Specifically, the board is allowed to meet remotely if the governor or the director of the Illinois Department of Public Health has issued a disaster declaration related to public health concerns. Guess where that came from? A little bit after the horse is out of the barn, but any questions on that one? Okay. I hope we never have to use it again. Personal comment. Policy 2.120 is being revised. It's going to reflect a new training mandate for board members. So beginning in the fall of 2023, board member training must include trauma-informed practices as related to students and staff. Questions?
Like, what's the plan for actually doing that? Is that one of these online modules that'll be available, or is there like some training that is going to be done through IASB? Anybody have an idea?
And that's for everybody, right? Old and new. Does it matter? And is it every year? Is it annually? Ms. Goldsmith, do you know?
So the state adds these requirements. What's the plan? What's the plan to meet them?
I'm unsure what the plan is at this time.
Okay.
I'll make sure we add that to our follow-up, because I also am not sure what the official plan is. So we'll make sure that as the policy changes, we have a plan to meet the need.
Good question, Mr. Rollins. Board policy 2.200 clarifies that the board is to review closed session minutes every 6 months or as soon as practical thereafter, as opposed to semi-annually. Used to say semi-annually, it's being changed to every 6 months or as soon as practical. So following the review, any minutes that are no longer deemed confidential must be released. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, those three policies
Excuse me.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Pearson, please.
So so this is just something that's being added. It wasn't currently the schedule.
It's a red line.
Okay.
So if you go to the
Correct.
to the link to that board policy on
Right.
on here.
On the draft.
Yeah, so they have redlined. I'm just pulling it up myself. So right now it says at least semi-annually. That has been lined out, and now it will state every 6 months or as soon as after as is applicable. And then there's a couple other little just word changes in there, just wordsmithing, but that's the basis of the policy change.
Okay, so the applicable portion.
We vote on the whole policy, but the changes are in the second to last, or on the paragraph on page 2 of 5. There's also one talking about the most current Robert's Rules of Order, which is on page 4, but
Okay, so there's no specific reason why we wouldn't review. It's almost like if it happens, then it happens. If it don't happen, then it don't.
well, we already do this, but basically the state tells us new verbiage that we need to add to our policies, and so that's part of our participation in Illinois State Board of Education is their legal department tells us where we need to update our
That's right.
policies, so that's where this would come from. Is that correct, Ms. Goldsmith?
Yes, and they sometimes codify decisions that come from the Illinois, the PAC or the Open Meetings Act review. So sometimes there'll be decisions that say, you know, a school board missed their semi-annual review. They did it every 6 months, but they only met the week after. And maybe the PAC decided that that was okay. So they kind of codified those decisions by saying, or as soon after as is practicable. So if you had a meeting that was 1 week after that 6-month mark, you could still proceed at that next meeting instead of shifting your calendar or something like that.
And this is something that we do. This is what we do at the start of our closed session, typically.
No.
No, this is, go ahead.
No, in the closed session, you're reviewing closed session minutes for approval. Every 6 months, they review closed session minutes to decide whether they still need to be confidential. Is there something pending in there that cannot yet be made public? Those kinds of things.
But then we bring them forward, and where they do need to be confidential, we redact or black out the names.
Yes.
But we vote on them publicly at that time.
Yes.
And we did that this past year?
Yes, that does get done. I do not know which specific meeting it occurred at, but yes, it happens.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the 2022-23 proposed meeting schedule that we voted on at the last board meeting, it appears that we didn't look at the July schedule well. So the July 4th is on a Monday, and we would have a meeting of Committee of the Whole on the Tuesday after that. And because staff has does a lot of work to presentations and committee chairs to, have all their information, it would be nice that they had a week instead of going right after a holiday. So we would vote to change that Committee of the Whole meeting to Tuesday, July 12th. And then that would be the second Tuesday of the month. So then we only do one board meeting in July. Did we already change that one? Somebody remind me, please. Okay.
Mrs. McCulloch, we changed it at the last board meeting to July 19th for the board meeting.
Okay, so we will be together then the 12th and the 19th with this change. Just confirming. Our consent agenda items will be for the 10th. Actually, it's for both of them. So for the 10th and the 24th are the pretty much standard meeting minutes, contract purchase orders, workers' compensation, and freedom of information log. I'm just going to make mention at this point, I was going to do it at the end, but the administration is going to change a little bit our agendas for Committee of the Whole going forward, so that when it says in here consent agenda items, instead of seeing just a single line, from now on they'll actually be in the Committee of the Whole agenda. So you'll see all of those, so that if you want to, you don't have to go find a draft agenda somewhere else. It'll all be there, so that if you want to, in your preparation for the Committee of the Whole, want to read any supportive documents, hopefully that'll make it easier for all the board members, I think. And you can let me know if that's helpful. We do have a speaker. Is the speaker here?
Can I ask a question real quick?
Oh, sure.
Back on the calendar, so I've got the July 12th date on my calendar already, so somebody sent that out, but I don't have any of the other dates. So, Mrs. Fromm, are you sending out evites to us so we can get those on our calendars?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that. Do we know if Mr. John Brantley is here? Before I read the whole, we're kind of like way ahead of schedule, you guys did. It's an amazing day here. Okay. I'm not going to read the whole piece on a speaker. The last piece of business I have for board members, do you know if somebody's out there, Mr. Siegel? Is that what you're looking? Does anybody want to check? I mean, because we have moved speakers to the end of the meeting, I can understand. Thank you, David. It's kind of like getting their glasses for Mrs. Detman last time. So I'm just going to say, and I can share with Mr. Siegel, but we talked about at our work session on Saturday about doing a review. Dr. Jarrett sent a couple of forms. We can have more conversation about that at our June 4th meeting, which we have already, will be off-site at Embassy Suites in a conference room. I did ask, he's not here, and thank you so much. I did send an email to board members asking just for their plus delta about Saturday's meeting to go to specifically just to Ms. Holdley. She'll put them all together. There won't be names, and so, but she said she has only heard from one other person. So if you guys could do that this week, then we would have those, that would be helpful. Yes, Mr. Siegel?
I was out there, so maybe you discussed this. I didn't hear it. Is there a particular form you'd like us to use, and did you want us to?
We haven't decided on a form as a group. I don't think, I mean, I'd be happy to send one if one of those two that Dr. Jarrett sent out. Would that be easier for you guys? Would you rather have a form instead of just a narrative of what you thought was helpful and not? You would rather have a form. I'll choose one and send it to you.
Because if my limitation is email, I am going to end up filling the internet. So let's just,
All right. I have no problem doing that. So I'll make sure we get one out. And let's see. Does anybody else have any? Ms. Pearson?
So I have already responded, so I'm going to just let that stand.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other business for the board or the committees? We will be, we adopted a governance motto when we worked with Mr. Eady that we change committee chairs annually so that it rotates among board members. And so this will be, that would start in June. And so I know we haven't codified who's taking over external stakeholders yet, but I know that Ms. Stanford has agreed to take over are you performance monitoring? Who came up with those names? So you'll get together with your representative. from this, your staff liaison. And I don't know, did we decide if we're changing our seating for the next one? Will that be possible, just so we have an idea? This is for next month, for the June Committee of the Whole. Well, although it's May 31st, right? Because of the graduations. So, well, we'll find out when we get here on May. If they've got us all set up in our U, we'll be there, and if not, we'll be here. So, okay. I see no other, Ms. Pearson.
I just have a very general question, and I probably should have asked it on Saturday, but in regards to the board docs, like, is it any portion of this information we can get prior to Friday?
So as board members, you have the ability, once you sign on, to view the draft agendas. And so anything that's on board docs, you can look at the draft agenda for next week's meeting, and all the attachments are visible to you for you to read, the same as it would be if the meeting were public. But you do have to sign in to see those. That is not available for the public because it's still a work in progress.
But the disciplinary packets are not, am I overlooking those?
Those usually aren't added until late Thursday, early Friday morning. And that can be very fluid. It can, depending, sometimes the packets, there's a change in them, so they're pulled out, and then they're rescanned and re-entered. So Thursday, usually they've been entering them Thursday, late afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But yeah, you have to sign in to see them, but everything is available to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So if you go to the main governing board across the top, and you have to then go to the meetings button, and it'll drop down, to the draft and the other. And then I was just going to take a peek for, so today is, so our next is May 1, which I don't see it on there for the draft.
Over in the black bar, over on the right side.
I'm in main governing board.
Okay.
And then I push draft.
Okay.
And I'm trying to find the May.
It's way at the bottom. It's way at the bottom.
That's why I'm in the wrong year. So if we go to May 10th, and you put attachments in as you receive them. So for preparation, there are attachments for a lot, but your question about student discipline are not on there yet. Do we always put those in as a packet? Can we not put them in, piecemeal, so that if, to Ms. Pearson's question, if you wanted to prepare ahead of time and not spend your whole weekend doing it?
I think maybe Ms. Goldsmith, I know that it's been a team effort to review these packets, and so they're reviewed by, by counsel too, by legal counsel's been reviewing them.
So Ms. Goldsmith, can they be put in as soon as they're reviewed, or do we have to wait and hold them and put them in all at once is the question?
I hesitate to respond because they have been receiving additional review and support with legal's assistance. So
I'm just going to ask for the board if somebody would have a conversation perhaps with Ms. Lawrence and yourself and the like, and see if there's any opportunity to download them earlier, that they don't have to come all at once, that if they put them in, and so we can read them ahead of time.
Yes, I'll follow up with that request.
Yeah, Mr. Rollins.
Thank you. I'm really not trying to create extra work for anyone, but somebody's going to sacrifice. Sorry.
It's a fair question, if you want to be.
So I was just thinking about this. you know, there's really no media in town anymore, so it's harder to get these messages out. But we just had another, as we all know, we had another child hit by a car today getting off a bus. Are we doing anything to try to push out to the media to try to do like public service announcements? Should we be doing something, you know, through our social media pushes to just remind people that when the school bus is stopped and the lights are flashing, the sign's out, that means you stop and everybody needs to slow down and stop?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, Mr. Rounds. I know that Mr. Slife has been very assertively reviewing in partnership with Mr. Barthel some technology that would add cameras. One of the things we've been debating, and I admit I've been the holdup on this because one of the downsides to that kind of technology would be the potential for us serving as sort of an entity that contributes to ticketing people in our community, and blurring the lines between law enforcement and being a school district is something that I think is, you know, a questionable concept. But if the board would like us to bring that forward for your perusal, that would probably be the most tangible thing we could do. Is essentially you put a camera, an external camera on the bus, and then you start going that way. But in terms of actual public service announcements, I'm not aware of anything we've done campaign-wise to raise awareness at this point.
I'm just wondering if maybe we should. You know, in the old days, you'd call the Register Star and there'd be an editorial in the paper, it'd be on the front page, you know, the local stations would be carrying it. There'd be some effort to raise awareness that, you know, we're having problems and people need to slow down and stop for school buses. What do we do now? And the answer may be that we need to do something ourselves.
Well, and we can't be the ticketing entity, but we can be a reporter. I mean, it's just like if I was sitting in a car and I saw the vehicle strike the child because it was a hit and run, and I could give a license plate number. That's the rest of it is not our responsibility, correct?
We can certainly bring that. We can certainly have further discussions about that proposal if it's of interest of the board.
Is that of interest to the board?
It's interesting to me. I think specifically to this question, I mean, I think what you're asking, Mr. Rollins, is could we reach out to our remaining media, our TV stations, and say, do you have any interest in making some sort of a statement about, you know, to your viewers, watch out for our students, and there are clear indications as to when you cannot move around a school bus, and then say what those things are so that message goes out in a broadcast form.
Well, that was partly what I was saying, and partly what I was saying is that's such a limited reach these days. I mean, we're always bragging about our social media reach. Should we be using our own social media reach to start pushing out the message and asking people then to circulate it?
So we have Speyer Eberly and Earl Dodson Jr. in the audience, and I think they've heard that the board seems to have some collective interest in talking about how we can partner with our transportation department to raise awareness. So we will follow up on that and report back at our next internal stakeholder committee. Perhaps we can have some ideas in place by then. So I will add that to a follow-up.
Ms. Pearson.
You know, I think this is a good opportunity for us to continue to collaborate with the city. We have a lot of, the RPS 205 have a lot of responsibility, no doubt. That's no secret, and it's a lot of responsibility. So, of course, we want our students safe, and we want our citizens to help keep our students safe. But I think that this is an opportunity that the city of Rockford can be a part of the effort in conjunction with RPS 205.
Okay. I think student safety is crucial. I think if you talk about how expensive a ticket is if you pass a bus with its arm out, I mean, maybe hitting people in the pocket, but I don't know. But and especially if somebody does a hit and run, I mean, that's just a whole different human being. So, Mr. Connor.
Yeah, and what I'd say is it's a good idea. Let's extend that to the county board and the municipalities that have students in there as well, so that they have that. And particularly, if I might say, the county should, because they cover quite a bit of our district, that we should reach out to them and see. The other question I've got is, and I am not on Facebook, so I would never have occasion to look. But do we have a Facebook page?
Yes.
Just fainted.
Hey.
We have multiple streams of information.
Facebook. Hey, I'm telling you.
I would like to defend the honor of our communications team. We have over 25,000 individuals that are following us on Facebook.
Sorry.
So we are, what's the new number?
Yeah.
20,000.
I am not a fan, I will just say, of the Facebook, but I mean, if we've got that, do we put those kinds of notices out on Facebook?
Again, I'm going to ask Mrs. Bayer-Eberly to partner with our content experts and provide an update to the board at next month's external stakeholder communications committee. I've already sent an email as we were talking to ensure that occurs, and I have great confidence that our team will come up with a great strategy to address this. We have had a very serious chain of events, frankly, that has occurred this year. And it's unsettling to me, and certainly had school-age children that rode a bus, and I think it's a very important topic for us to strategize on how we can raise awareness.
Did you want to say something, Ms. Eberly? No.
No, thank you.
Mr. Connor?
I would just say, I don't like Facebook. I don't like any of them, so I'm totally ignorant of all of them. So.
Mr. Connor, we're going to have you turn in your flip phone.
No. Hey, I got the phone, but I refuse to feed the Big Brother machine, so.
Mr. Connor, you and I aren't always, living parallel here, but we're both county people, and we both don't do Facebook.
I don't do it. So I apologize. It's not your failure, it's mine.
Not everybody does, but there are other avenues. Ms. Pearson.
Well, in defense of our communication department, I think that we have done a good job in making information available. There's an app. Do you have the app? The RPS 205 app? It's right on. It's found in the Play Store. But there's multiple ways that we can get this information out, and to a message to our community on the safety of our children and being respectful and considerate of our children loading and unloading from the bus.
And kudos to communication, because I do hear from parents all the time how well information gets out to our student families. But this isn't all student families. I mean, we don't know who hit the child today, but it wasn't necessarily a parent or somebody who was actually, that's why covering beyond just our families is important. All right, anybody else?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Are the graduations going to be added to board calendar? Are you in the process of creating that for us? Okay, thank you.
Okay, and all of them are at Guilford? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The first one is Friday the 3rd, and then we go 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th of the following week. So we're going to have a whole bunch of outdoor graduations with a Saturday rain date, which I hope we do not have to use.
For sure. All right. Any other lights, questions? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. Good night, and see you next week, right?
Mr. Siegel, please step into my office.